President Zelensky a dictator?
Congressman, with respect to Ukraine...
No. Is President Zelensky a dictator?
May I answer something that you...
No, I want you to answer that one right now. My time's precious here.
Welcome back to Freedom Forge. If you care about truth, accountability, and putting America first, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe right now, because what we're about to break down is something you're not getting clearly from the mainstream media. Today, we're reacting to a heated Senate hearing focused on national security, global threats, and America's role in conflicts involving Iran, Russia, Ukraine, and NATO allies. Lawmakers questioned top defense officials about whether U.S. allies are truly aligned with us, how adversaries like Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea are working together, and whether America's current strategy is actually protecting our interests. What we saw was a mix of tough questions, uncomfortable answers, and a lot of deflection, especially when it came to transparency and coordination with allies.
Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Keating.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank the witnesses for giving us this booklet this morning on the strategy for 2026. Highlighted in that is Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and others are increasing their collaboration and cooperation as their interests align against the United States. Security interest, economic interest against the United States. So I have some questions I'd like to ask as we look at those threats of collaborating nations. Secretary Zimmerman, is Russia a key collaborator with Iran?
Congressman, they do collaborate.
And they're collaborating right now. They're targeting U.S. servicemen to be killed. They're targeting sites, and they're giving intelligence to Iran today. Now, with the Bashar Assad regime in Syria, was Russia a big collaborator with that threat against the U.S.?
Congressman, as you know, Russia was deeply involved in the...
How about North Korea? How about North Korea? Are they collaborating? Who are the key collaborators of North Korea, giving them strategic military information and taking their soldiers and their drone warfare?
We see...
Is it Russia?
We see opportunistic collaboration there.
From who? From Russia?
Yes, sir.
And we see the work of China and Russia working together, where they're doing joint exercises, more than ever historically, working together against the U.S. interest. So let's just switch to what's going on in the negotiations on Ukraine, because this puts Ukraine front and center on our interest, our interest. The negotiations are one-sided. The U.S. is sitting there saying that Ukraine should cede land that's not even conquered. They're saying Ukraine should limit their military in the future defense capabilities, just against what we heard this morning about what European countries, and Ukraine is a European country, should be doing. And they denigrate the leader. Mr. Zimmerman, is President Zelensky a dictator?
Congressman, with respect to Ukraine...
No. Is President Zelensky a dictator?
May I answer something that you...
No, I want you to answer that one right now. My time's precious here.
I'm not aware of any evidence that he's a dictator.
No. How much did he get in his last election? Do you know? Percentage-wise?
I don't know.
75%. So he's not... Who did call him a dictator? Do you know, Mr. Zimmerman?
May I speak to your previous point?
No. I'm questioning you. You don't know who called President Zelensky a dictator?
I think many people have.
Was one of them President Trump?
I'm not tracking that.
Was he? Did he say that about Zelensky, that he was a dictator? The commander-in-chief who you answered to.
I'm not aware, Congressman.
Well, let me inform you, he did. I suggest you educate yourself on that. Did he say that they shouldn't be allowed at the negotiations? Did President Trump say that?
I didn't catch the question.
Whether Ukraine should be involved in the negotiations, whether they should be a party to it.
They are a party to negotiations.
They're not. They're not included in the negotiations directly with the U.S. and Russia, trilaterally. And, by the way, Europe should be included in that, too. President Trump suggested that was the case because they had no cards to play. General, does Ukraine have cards to play in the war?
Congressman, Ukraine has performed extremely well and innovated on the battlefield, and even in recent weeks has taken back some territory around Zaporizhia.
Thank you, General. And back to Mr. Zimmerman. What's the distance in miles from where we are in Washington, D.C. to Tehran?
From here to Tehran,
In Iran, yeah.
I can speculate that it's
I'll
maybe
tell
over
you,
10,000.
it's 6,000 miles.
Okay.
Can you tell us the distance from Washington, D.C. and Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine?
I bet it's.
Let me inform you, it's 5,100. It's less than it is. Then why did the president say that the war in Ukraine does not directly affect the U.S.? Because it's very far away. So do you think the president was wrong in saying that, as I just told you, that Kyiv is a closer distance than Tehran?
Congressman, respectfully, I think you'd have to look at every comment in its context. And
Well, that's pretty clear cut to me. But let me go on, because I'd like to compliment many of the people across the aisles here in talking about the importance of NATO, and we're going to do that. I wish they would sign on to a discharge. We need one more person to sign on to that to give greater sanctions to Russia and support for the Baltic countries and Ukraine. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Chair now recognizes.
Let's get into what really stood out. One of the most important moments in this hearing was the clear acknowledgement that America's biggest adversaries are no longer acting alone. We're talking about Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea increasingly collaborating, sharing intelligence, and aligning their strategies directly against U.S. interests. That is not speculation. That was stated plainly during the hearing. And that should concern every American. Because while these nations are getting more coordinated, what do we see on our side? Confusion, hesitation, and in some cases, a lack of clear leadership. When questioned, officials confirmed that Russia is actively collaborating with Iran, sharing intelligence, and even supporting actions that put U.S. servicemen at risk. Think about that. A major global power is working directly with a regime that has long been hostile to the United States, and yet the response we're getting in this hearing feels cautious, restrained, almost uncertain. Now let's talk about Ukraine, because this is where things really start to expose contradictions. The discussion turns to negotiations, and what we hear is deeply troubling. There are suggestions that Ukraine should consider giving up land it hasn't even lost yet and limiting its own future military capabilities. That's not negotiation, that's pressure. And it raises a serious question. Whose interests are actually being prioritized here? Then comes the moment where the official is pressed about whether Ukraine's president is a dictator. The answer? No. And that matters. Because narratives shape policy, and when leaders are mischaracterized, it can influence how decisions are made on the global stage. But here's where I want to give you my take as someone who believes in strong America First leadership. We need to be very clear about our priorities. The United States should not be dragged into endless foreign entanglements without a clear strategy, clear objectives, and clear benefits to American citizens. At the same time, we cannot ignore the reality that global threats are becoming more coordinated and more aggressive. That means leadership matters more than ever. And right now, what this hearing shows is a gap between what's happening globally and how prepared we are to respond effectively. Another moment that stood out was the discussion about geography, how far Ukraine is from the United States versus Iran. It might seem like a small detail, but it highlights a bigger issue, how policymakers justify involvement or non-involvement in conflicts. When explanations don't line up with basic facts, it weakens trust, and trust is everything. Now let's go back to NATO and alliances. We keep hearing that alliances are strong, that cooperation is happening, but when pressed for specifics, the answers become vague. We're in conversations. We'll discuss that in a classified session. That's not transparency. And while some level of secrecy is necessary, the American people deserve to know the direction their country is heading. Because here's the bottom line. Our adversaries are aligning. They're sharing resources, intelligence, and strategy. Meanwhile, we're still figuring out who's on board, who is consulted, and what the plan actually is. That imbalance is dangerous. Strong leadership means clarity. It means planning ahead, not reacting after the fact. It means putting America's interests first while building real, dependable alliances, not assuming support will magically appear when needed. This hearing wasn't just about policy. It was a glimpse into how decisions are being made, how information is being handled, and how prepared we really are for the challenges ahead. And if you're paying attention, there are more questions than answers. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Freedom Forge, and stay informed, because in times like these, understanding what's really going on isn't optional, it's essential.